Good morning, everyone. I would like to go ahead and call today's meeting back to order. And I would like to begin by thanking President Bodner for a fantastic evening at the Payne Family Native American Center. What a cultural extravaganza. That the dancers were unbelievable. It was really moving. And so please extend our thanks to everyone who was involved in putting that together. The dancers who were the professional dancers, if I may. But no, truly, that was fantastic. I would like to go ahead and turn today's meeting over to, let's see here, to the chair of our two-year and community college committee, Bob Nicestoon. Chair Nicestoon.
Thank you, Chair Albrecht. It's a pleasure this morning to be the kickoff for our Friday morning meeting. We have a pretty simple agenda here for the two-year and community college committee. Our committee members, as just for recollection purposes, is Regent Albrecht, Regent Bree Rogers, and Regent Dalton Johnson. And so we met via conference call about a week ago and had a good discussion about two items that we will talk about today. The first one is refocusing on the two-year mission, and number two is Healthcare Montana Grant final report, which is part of the packet that you've got today. We're joined today by Deputy Commissioner Brock Tessman to help kind of have what I think Brock and I have agreed is probably a conversation, more of a conversation with the board and with the campus leaders about the two-year mission. It's a time when we have so much in play with so many of the other things. The importance, though, that we see as far as looking at the goals of the state, looking at the strategic plan of the Montana Board of Regents, I think it's very important that we continue to send the message loud and clear that two-year education is phenomenally important for our university system. With that, what I'd like to do is queue it up with Deputy Commissioner Tessman to get the conversation going this morning. And again, this is going to be a discussion, and then not just a back and forth between Bob and Brock. Let's come with some ideas and some thoughts about it. So with that, Brock.
Thank you, Chair Nicestoon, members of the board. I couldn't agree more. I think we'll keep it contained, but I would like for this agenda item to be characterized more by conversation and discussion than might typically be the case. However, we do have some opening remarks to kick off that discussion. First of all, I'd like to thank both Chair Nicestoon and President Karras from Flathead Valley Community College, other two-year leaders, for their thoughts and creativity in getting the conversation started on our call last week, and in fact over the last few months. I mentioned in Billings, which was my first board meeting in this position, that I'm fortunate enough to follow John Seck in this position. And John, over a number of years, developed a great deal of expertise and a great deal of skill in promoting the two-year mission throughout the state of Montana. And while I don't pretend to have the same background and I don't necessarily pretend to have the same skill set, I am dedicated and committed to maintaining the momentum that he built. And in fact, I hope we can achieve even greater momentum in the years to come. I would open my remarks, and I'll throw it back to you in a minute, Chair Nicestoon, but I'd open my remarks by saying that we need to refocus and reemphasize the two-year mission, and we need to for a few reasons. If you talk to any industry partner that this university system has, one of the first comments that they'll make is that the system could be more agile, more nimble, more responsive to industry needs in terms of training graduates, training current employees, and upskilling those employees so that the Montana economy, Montana communities can continue to grow and reach their potential. The two-year system has got to be front and center in that effort. We need the two-year system in order to respond to the economic needs of this state. If we think about the governor's objective and our own objective of having 60% of Montanans achieve post-secondary credential, certificate, degree, we have a long ways to go. We're in, Tyler, what are we, low to mid 40s right now in terms of the percentage of Montanans with post-secondary credentials, degrees, something like that. If we want to get to 60, we'll see some growth, I'm sure, on the 4-year front. We should aspire toward that. Most of the growth should and will come through our 2-year campuses. So in order to move the needle in the grandest scheme, which is our goal of achieving that 60% threshold, we need to refocus and reemphasize the 2-year mission. Chair Nystuen, you mentioned the Montana University System Strategic Plan. So 3 basic points: affordability and access, workforce and economic development, and then efficiency, for lack of a better term. All 3 of those things square so much with what the 2-year system has to offer the state of Montana. I think affordability and access goes without saying, both in terms of the locations of our 2-year campuses, their connections with their communities, and tuition structures, the ability to complete college credits at a substantial discount. Workforce and economic development, I believe our 4-year campuses are responsive to industry. Could do better, but are responsive. Our 2-year campuses are on the front line, and the system has done some things, like our level 1 approval process that allows for a quicker turnaround and the ability of 2-year campuses to propose degree and certificate programs and offer them in a shorter time span. We've done some things, but we can do better on that front. And certainly with respect to efficiency, I think it makes sense for us to explore new structures, whether they be governance structures or collaborative structures that allow the 2-year system to function more efficiently. As I've learned from our 2-year leaders, and they truly have been patient with me, I think reached a conclusion, which is that we have a number of tactics which we can employ in the short term. And some of those tactics are already on display. 1-2 free, I think, is a terrific way for us to grow dual enrollment across the state of Montana. I believe that we can continue to seek opportunities for 2-year colleges to have an easier way to send their students to 4-year campuses, so working on transferability, common course numbering, general education reform, some of the things that Joe Teal spoke about yesterday. There are tactics available, but we need to dig down and take a systems approach. I heard Susan Hay-Patrick this morning talk about the importance of systems thinking and addressing systemic change. We need to think about the structure of 2-year education in the state and get down to the roots of what may be holding us back just a little bit. I may have the numbers off just a bit, but I think we're about 20% of the student population in the Montana University system is located at the 2-year level. More or less, that's kind of half the national average. And there may be reasons for that number to be different in Montana than it is nationally. I'm not saying it has to align perfectly, but to me, that's a bit of an interesting statistic. And in order to approach something closer to the national average, we have to look at systemic factors. So how do you do that? Well, I think you take some time and you explore some of the fundamental changes that need to be made, and I appreciate the need to explore and to think and to analyze. If you know me or you've gotten to know me over the last few months, you know that's not my inclination, and I do not want us to simply convene a task force and to think for a year or 18 months about how to restructure 2-year education. I want us to take some chances. I want us to accept some imperfections in the short term if it produces some positive outcomes in the short term. I was so inspired to hear about the Seamless MSU project and to understand that there's a lot of dirtiness and messiness behind the curtain, but more or less they're producing positive outcomes for the students in a way that's reasonably convenient for students. And I would like for us to take a similar approach with the 2-year world, to accept some messiness and imperfection behind the scenes if it means that we can make progress along the way. So, Chair Nystuen, I know you have a few talking points that you can use to get the conversation started and you can use in order to get us refocused on the 2-year mission. I appreciate you allowing me a few minutes to express my own view on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Tessman. It's very well said. You know, inherently we have kind of an interesting conglomeration of how we work with our 2-year schools across the state. We have 3 community colleges that are governed by local boards. I served on the board of Flathead Valley Community College for 13 years. It was great. Thank you, Jane, for all the exposure there to higher education from a 2-year perspective, as well as in Dawson and Miles Community College. Those 3 community colleges, along with Great Falls and Helena, are in it every day, just like the 4-year schools, as far as trying to drive enrollment. They are out there working hard to do that. So they are not caught up in all of the other activities of a 4-year campus. So that really puts City College, Highlands College, Gallatin College, and Missoula College as part of a greater campus environment. And I think inherently, sometimes, and I'll just throw the issue on the table here, that sometimes I'm concerned that those campuses feel like they are, I don't call them second-class citizens, but they are shortchanged or have a diminished role in the scheme of providing education. I know the value that the community colleges have in the area of workforce development up certainly in the Flathead and so forth and so on. But I look at some of the vocational programs, the technical types of training, the transfer impact that they have for our university system here. And I want to make sure that we are adequately dedicating the resources to City, Highlands, Gallatin, and Missoula colleges to continue to advance this. And so I'm curious as to, is that a perception that's real or not from the vantage point of the campus leaders that are here? How are your 2-year schools recognized throughout your constituency area, your stakeholders, your communities in the context of the greater good of the organization? How are they perceived? What would we say is they are about in the scheme of education in your community? So I'll throw that out as an open-ended question to maybe the campus leaders.
Regent Nyston members, members of the board, we have several affiliations in the Montana State University side, and for example, with our partners in Great Falls College MSU, all I can say is they participate in the same meetings that we participate. They have a seat at the table with our retreats. Susan Wolf is an important part and actor of those conversations. Same thing goes for our embedded Gallatin College MSU. As recently as 2 weeks ago, Provost Makwa and I had an opportunity to have breakfast with our faculty members from Gallatin College. We have now developed this model where every other year we go to every department, we sit down with the faculty, we talk about what are you doing, these are the goals from the university and the Regents. In turn, the faculty have an opportunity to showcase what they're proud about and ask us questions. And I will say, and I was having this conversation yesterday with Bob Hayatella, our very adept and competent dean. That was a wonderful conversation with our faculty members from Gallatin College, and a great opportunity for Provost Makwa and I, as leaders, to convey a sense of gratitude and appreciation and admiration for what they bring to the table, and a sense of encouragement, right? That we're here to help. Let us know how we can remove obstacles. We understand that 2-year programs need to move at a faster clip in the approval process, so let us know. And I will finish with this. The processes are important. The message, the tone at the top is essential. Little details also count. So once a month, the provost and I have tried to have dinner with a small group of faculty leaders, particularly from Faculty Senate. And it's important to have people from Gallatin College. at those dinners, right? And the faculty member, Teresa, who was joining us, she sent me later a beautiful note, because it's at those little opportunities that we have, right? When we just sit down around the table, we break bread together, we talk about, well, tell me more about you, right? We get to know each other better. Everybody leaves that night understanding that the entire university appreciates each and every department and their disciplines and what that they can do in order to make of Montana State University an even better and stronger institution.
Thank you, President Cruzado. President Bodner.
Yes, Regent Nystuen, members of the board. I mean, I would echo what President Cruzado would say. I would add one thing, that I think our communities, you know, not just here in Missoula, but in Helena, in Butte, and down in the Bitterroot, I mean, see tremendous value in our two-year colleges. They see them as their local universities. They see them as key places where people can build skills. I think we have an opportunity to be, as Deputy Commissioner Tessman shared, to be more effective here. I think we can see our two-year schools not just as the local school to provide local training and that local workforce, but as portals to the entire system, and as places where, yes, you can receive a two-year degree, yes, you can begin a path to a four-year degree, and in some ways you can use that as, again, a window, a portal to access the rest of the system. So I actually think we have a real opportunity to build upon success and make those two-year institutions even more effective.
Chair Albrecht.
I guess I would like to get a little into a little more gritty in this discussion. I'd like to have a better understanding of how are the two-year colleges able to really communicate the barriers that they have. You know, I had heard from some that it's difficult, so it feels kind of, and again, I would put this back to our own program prioritization process perhaps, that you know, how they have to sort of get in line to get programs moving, and I know that the two-year colleges are critical in the importance of being nimble in providing those programs. And then also the push for ensuring that they are marketing to a constituency that needs a variety of times of the day and weekends, et cetera, to be able to achieve their educational goals. So I guess it's a lot of questions in there, but I really want to better understand how we're getting down to what are those barriers and what do we need to improve. And then in a future meeting, I would like to really take a look at the overall health of our two-year colleges across the state so that we can understand how we can be more effective in helping to push those forward. Did you find a question in there?
President Bodner, I think you got a response.
Madam Chair, fellow other regents, I think that we've done a lot of good work, and I know we have Kirk Lacey. I don't want to put him on the spot, but you talk about the barriers. I mean, when the commissioner and I first visited Helena College earlier this year, we had that specific discussion. What are the barriers? What are the challenges that you see? What are the things that we can do to better collaborate, to better enable Helena College to reach its full potential? And I want to commend Kirk and his team for the work that they've done and meeting with our teams, our provost, our associate provost, to identify what are some of those roadblocks, what are some of those hurdles. And we've made some tangible progress. And I think, Kirk, if you would be willing maybe to share for 30 seconds some context. And again, not to call you up, but I think it would be appropriate to discuss some of those.
Thanks, President Bodner. Madam Chair, members of the board. We're just excited about the progress that we've made that Seth has referred to. Helena College, as independently accredited, standalone institution, two-year comprehensive institution, is affiliated with U of M. And when Commissioner Christian and Seth came to our campus early last spring, We had a focus of looking at what are the top 10 ways that we can improve the collaborations between Helena College and University of Montana, not just the Mountain Campus, but also collaborations between the two-year institutions, Helena College and Missoula College. And so we went through an intensive process to do campus-wide surveys, focus groups, and we identified a set of priority goals for improving transfer, improving academic collaborations between the institutions, and both two-year and four-year, as well as a graduate, looking at opportunities, as Seth referred to, as how Helena College can serve as a portal for University of Montana to serve the higher education needs of the Helena area in collaboration with Helena College. And also, how do we work through efficiency and effectiveness opportunities to look at shared service and seamless integration of services across the campuses. And we have our leadership team and Seth's leadership team and Roger McLean at Missoula College and his leadership team working on a set of action plans that we've been driving forward over the last several months, and dedicated time and energy and effort over the next several months to keep those action items moving forward for substantive progress on each of those fronts. Student support and success, shared services, and academic collaborations. That wasn't 30 seconds, I apologize.
And Madam Chair, I think you asked specifically about academic programs and meeting the needs, and I think it doesn't necessarily mean adding new programs. It means how do we deliver programs that already exist in a way that's more effective and in a way that serves those who potentially are place-bound in Helena. And it's not ready yet, but one of the things we talked about yesterday is a paralegal program that Kirk and his team have identified a path to say, how can we have the first year of Missoula College's paralegal program delivered in Helena to serve the needs of those who are in Helena, but then we can have the second year, and I think we're working through the details. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean putting new programs on the books and building duplicate offerings, but it means delivering those offerings in a coordinated way that serves the needs of Montanans where they are. I think that's where there's great promise in our two-year system, and I think we're making some very tangible progress on that.
Rock.
No. On the topic about more granularity and details, one of the topics of conversations that we had with Great Falls College, MSU, and with Gallatin College, it's paying attention at the length of time that takes our students to complete their degrees, and to pay attention particularly to the summer month. What kind of offer do we have in the summer month? We do a great job offering 2 years. Our programs, our faculty are revisiting it to make sure that we understand that we need to deliver it in a timely manner. But sometimes we are allowing the tradition of the old academic year to stand in the way, and we're asking those students not to enroll during the summertime, when that might be a good time for those parents, for those students to make optimal use of the summer month. So that's another important conversation. It's just paying attention to every little detail, walking a mile in students' shoes as to be able to identify those little details, and recognizing, as we learned with our prerequisite conversation, that time is the enemy for our students. The longer it takes for them to complete their college degree, the higher the probability that they will abandon school altogether.
Thank you, President Cruzado. Deputy Commissioner Tessman.
Thank you, Chair Nystuen, members of the board. Really appreciate some of the really good points that have been developed already in this conversation. Regent Albrecht, you mentioned that you'd like to, at some point in the near future, have a more thorough assessment of challenges and opportunities. I think you've got a good start this morning. I have spoken with our two-year leaders. We have a retreat scheduled for the very early part of the new year. We have calls that are scheduled. We're working on this. As a point of context, I would expect that at the March meeting, or perhaps at the May meeting, we'll have a fuller report in an operational plan, not just kind of a vision, but an operational plan. So as a point of context, a second point I'd like to just add is that in speaking with our two-year leaders, we know that this board, this audience, in fact, has an appreciation for two-year education. I asked my team to tell me what we've done as an office to demonstrate the value and efficiency of two-year education, and they said, look, we've put together presentations, they've been at the board, the numbers are compelling, and I believe they are. In fact, the primary audience for this conversation may not be in the room, and Superintendent Arnson was here yesterday. It may be more of a K through 12 audience that we need to reach, and I'm talking about students, their families, counselors, teachers, high school administrators, and changing the narrative perhaps at that level so that more and more communities and high schools understand that the two-year system in Montana may very well be the best option for many more of their students than they think. It's not a second option. It may be the best place to receive developmental education with faculty who are trained specifically to deal with students who need some of that developmental work. It may be the best place for flexible delivery for students who do not wish to attend college between 10 and 2 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but instead are looking for different formats. It may be the best place to upskill or receive a credential that positions you quite well in the workplace. If I'm not mistaken, I saw a statistic that in a number of fields, the earning power with the associate's degree is actually higher than the earning power with a bachelor's degree. And that, just take that for what it's worth. It doesn't mean that that is the only criterion through which a student should determine their choice between 2-year and 4-year. But for a large number of our students, that 2-year option may be the best option. And so I think at the K through 12 level, we need to do an even better job of reaching out and expressing the value of K through 12. Thank you.
Mr. Commissioner.
Just to follow up on that, I mean, I think that's a lot of my opening comments yesterday. You know, we look at areas of growth for us. We oftentimes assume the conversation is about the flagships, and what I said in Billings, I think a lot of students have that part figured out. And I think the students that are headed to the flagships know what they're going to do, and they know where they're going to go. But we have in our 2-year sector some of the greatest opportunities that are yet to be discovered, right? And they're the institutions with the lowest amount of budget for marketing, for branding, for recruiting. I think part of this, and when we talk about what we may be able to do with a single portal, what we may be able to do recruiting more at a state, especially in-state to our K-12 and through our K-12 partners, that's what that's about. And I think that's introducing a lot of students that, frankly, leave commencement ceremonies the last day of high school and aren't sure where they're going to go next, but yet all the data would suggest they're better off by far to do something. That's the group we've got to capture. And again, it doesn't matter where they go, but I don't think they know what the options are. I don't think they know what's in store. And that's why I really think that 40% is a huge focus for us. I think the benefactor of that could primarily be in our 2-year sector. That's not moving anybody around. That's telling new students that aren't yet going what the opportunities are. And so I just think there's a world of chance and hope for us here and for the students that we engage to participate at one of our 2-year institutions. But we really don't have the word out. And you know, it's not for lack of trying on behalf of the 2-year institutions, but we have them sort of strapped with no budget, no market ability, little branding, little connections. You know, they're not talking about negotiating multi-million-dollar deals with one of the name hunting organizations. They're talking about how do we get out and get the word out. And I think that's why, honestly, some of the work that we're talking about through the K-12 partnership could really be beneficial. That's our opportunity right there, and it's huge.
Thank you. Good insights, Mr. Commissioner. Regent Tuss.
Thank you, Regent Eystun. The other audience, since we're talking about audiences for two-year system are the folks that we talked about at some length yesterday that have some exposure to higher education in Montana. And I'm going to get the number wrong, but it was a huge number, 150,000 or something like that. So I would speculate out, just off the top of my head that our two-year system would be a great conduit to those folks that were here for a quarter, or were here for a semester, or have a few credits. And I'm not sure we have the answer to this, but I think the question is, have we thought about how we touch them? Have we thought about how we reach out to them? Have we thought about how we let them know about this dynamic component of the Montana university system that is indeed our two-year system? 150,000 folks are a lot of folks.
Regent Johnson.
Coming from a two-year school, this is a great conversation, a great topic to dive into. Something I'd like to charge the Deputy Commissioner with is actually focusing some of his efforts with the Montana Associated Students towards involving more of the two-year voice. It's an interesting dynamic when you talk about Gallatin College or Missoula College. We see the flagship universities on those calls. We get their perspective, but coming from the two-year school where there is their own cohort, where there is their own community, it's important to hear those voices. There's other schools in the room today that are also unable to provide student voices at these meetings, where we're diving into major topics where student voice, student opinion is greatly appreciated to the board members. If those members could start bringing students, I think that would also be beneficial to the board.
Thank you, Regent Johnson. Maybe Brock.
Charge accepted, Regent Johnson. Regent Tuss, adult learners, one of the things we need to do is get off the counter-cyclical model we're on right now. If you look at the trends in two-year education, when the economy is great, enrollment in two-year education goes down because you have folks in the workforce, and that's a terrific thing. But we need to get away from that by being extremely flexible with delivery, both in terms of times of course offerings and the ability to deliver online credentials and certificates and degrees. And I think if we do that, we'll have a more stable enrollment structure, and will allow people who are in the workforce to stay in the workforce and to develop new skills while they're still working that are going to help them develop their career.
Regent Lozar.
Thank you, Chair Nystuen, and thank you for teeing this conversation up. This is something we don't do very often, so I really appreciate you setting the table. So I agree with a lot of things that have been said so far this morning. I just want to reiterate one point, and that's President Cruzado's point about, the message and the tone at the top really, really matters. And I see this board and this commissioner and OCHI having prioritized two-year and community college education. I don't think that has gone away. I haven't seen that in my 3 years on the board go away. In fact, I think if I reflect on my board experience, one of the areas where I've seen sort of the most energy and passion has been around our work around CCA. And all the different game changer activities that have happened on campuses, and a lot of those have happened at the 2 years or the embedded. And you can just kind of go through the list of all the colleges, and there's a whole bunch of different highlights. The work with City College, with the employment center or tech center that's nearby, the Great Falls College that just rolled out their new scheduling and are testing the new scheduling. A lot of different schedules that have happened across the system that we hear are having significant changes. Some of the work with Helena College really reaching out into industry in the Helena region. The Missoula College study, you may remember a couple years ago, that incredibly comprehensive study that was done that was really linking the academic offerings with the very localized community to help sort of set the tone of, let's look at our programs, how do we modernize these, how do we align them to the needs of our community. I think that was incredibly productive. So I could probably continue to go down the list for each of the campuses and demonstrate some areas that we've had significant growth. So in some ways, I'm sort of at a crossroads in my mind. Like, I think we're doing a lot of great things, but for some reason there is this question about what more can we do. And you know, I would ask the commissioner, and I'd ask deputy commissioner, that when the two-year leadership come together in early 2019, that you have an incredibly robust conversation as it relates to the needs and what are the barriers around innovation and growth. And I think a lot of what I'm hearing maybe is some issues around agility and speed of adjustment and change. And there may be something underneath that we're not talking about the voice and consistency of voice of leadership at the two-year colleges. And I think those need to be strategically put into the conversation that you have at the beginning of the year. And I'd love for you to come back to the board and say, sort of, yes, we would like to celebrate these things that we've done, but here's a couple key things that we really need to make a move on. And as this being a conversation at the Board of Regents meeting around colleagues on the board, I think that feedback from campus and from OCHI is going to help us in determining if there is any sort of structural changes or governance changes or policy changes that we need to consider at this level to improve whatever offerings that we have. You know, working in economic development, and I know Regent Tuss would share the same thing. Our employers, every employer that we talk about, are asking about skills, skill training. We need more employees. We need them now. We need them yesterday. We're willing to pay more. Yet we're having a conversation about how do we retool and how do we really leverage the 2 years. So obviously there's a great opportunity for us in Montana to do something different or enhance something that's really, really working. We just need to know what it is, and I think this board really needs to know sort of what our role can be and sort of accelerating progress in the 2 years. So look forward to the report back in maybe the March meeting.
Thank you, Regent Lozar. Regent Sheehy.
I'd like to follow up on Casey's comments. Not a member of this committee, but I attend a lot of things where we hear about the two-year colleges, and all of them, many of them have been related by Casey. It sounds like you're looking for the board's prevailing view on support for two-year colleges as you move into this new phase. We have a new deputy commissioner. We have this summit coming up with all of the two-year colleges, and so I add my voice. Supportive. Absolutely. I can't remember in my term on the board, really I can't remember any initiatives regarding two-year colleges that we haven't worked really hard to fulfill and to support and to implement. So I continue on that vein. We don't have an action item today. Go forth. You have my support. If you're looking for really I think there's I hesitate to use the word unanimous because you all got your own opinions, but very supportive at the committee level, at the whole board level. And we always try to be agile because that's the role of the two-year colleges in response to your action items. So we will continue to do that, I think.
Thank you, Regent Sheehy. Regent Rogers.
I'll add my voice of support as well. Reflecting on Regent Lozar's comments, leadership from the top is so important. I'm so proud of the leadership that we've received from our flagship universities and from our presidents of our colleges. I think also it's a bottom-up approach, just as we've discussed from the K through 12 level, having those guidance counselors bought in and selling that vision of what the future could look like is so vital, and changing the hearts and minds of our parents and helping folks understand what the opportunities that exist and how it can not only better your life long term and your earning potential, but also your health outcomes. I mean, there's so many opportunities there. And finally, the other theme that I'm hearing a lot about is once we get them there, you know, and making it very easy to access that, then the transferability piece. Those students I've heard from other campuses are incredibly motivated to get to completion, and ensuring that, as we've heard from Regent Johnson, how difficult it can be to transfer between the different campuses at times, making sure we're doing everything we can to make that smooth.
Thank you, Regent Rogers. One of the things that we recently kicked off here in Montana, it was a bold move, was the 1-2 free program. You know, I know it kind of took off with a bang. It's kind of a really cool way of posturing or positioning, come and get some credits, college credits for free. But beyond that, what are our campus leaders, what should the Board of Regents be doing to put more wind in the sails of 1-2 free? How do we engage more than just it's out there? President Karras put together a kind of a recap of the great attributes of the 2-year community college programs here in the state, but one of the ones that she had was the dual credit programs provide great opportunities for high school students to take college classes and receive high school and college credit both. We all know that, but what are we doing once we have the data, once we have the information about who those students are in high school? It seems to me that's a target-rich environment that we should be mining, and we should be going full force to say they already have a running start on college. Why aren't we marketing the heck out of them with personal calls, information, contacts with them to make sure that they're having success in the classroom, number one, and number two is you now have got a running start to a 2-year or 4-year campus because of 1-2 free. So I'd like to see if there's other concurrence with that is an opportunity we should be using. We're making an expense, it's an investment, if you will, but how do we get a good return on that for the 1-2 free program?
Regent Nystuen, members of the board, I think that the key will be in the MUS working in close collaboration with K-12. Our best open door continues to be that high school advisor who can then inspire students to take more courses, to try themselves in this new modality. I'm also thinking, and just to underline what has been said so that we do not overcorrect, the most important message that the MUS can send is that any campus of the Montana University system is open to you, that we do not believe in that mantra of college is not for everyone, that when you're talking about public higher education, college actually is for everyone. And then you will find your door, which is not just 4-year education, but it's not just 2-year either, because there are other problems associated with that. One of the best contributions that 2-year education has provided, in my mind, to 4-year education is to be more sensitive about being student-centered institutions, whether research institutions or comprehensive institutions. We all can do a little bit more in terms of providing that focus. I don't want to send inadvertently the message that now 4-year institutions or research institutions can be less student-centered. I think, in fact, part of the problem with some of our research institutions in the nation, as I like to tell my team, is that for a good number of years we have been chasing privilege rather than choosing promise. So it's important for OCHI to help us convey the message that yes, we're accessible, we're open to every student, and yes, we are affordable, because that is the big fear when students sit at the kitchen table with their parents. Parents still think that they cannot afford it. And some students do not have enough self-confidence to believe that they are college material and that they can be successful in college. OCHI, that's where I need OCHI's help. Access and affordability explained in very simple terms for every family in Montana.
Thank you, President Cruzado. Maybe as we draw towards conclusion of this particular agenda item, certainly we should open up the floor, get some input from the folks on the west side of the table here. Any campus leaders like to chime in? Have you got some thoughts about the conversation we've had so far this morning?
Regent Nystuen and members of the board, maybe going back to Regent Albrecht's, question about grittiness, kinds of things. So looking at the two-year programs from our perspective, we certainly have spent a great deal of time on our campus looking at the role since the special focus designation about where Highlands College fits in there. And I do think that, there are some issues about location, some more convenient than other. I think there's issues around, even within a community, you say it's not very far, but I mean, there are some issues around that. I think looking at the standalones, we've kind of been lumped with embedded, and I think there are different strategies for those schools. I'm seeing Regent Johnson's head going up and down. They are very different schools, and I think we should step back a little bit, Brock, and look at the difference between embedded schools. I look at schools like Northern and Western that have a different kind of model for two-year education. I'm not sure what the in-state, out-of-state looks like completely at other institutions. I was kind of scrolling through some of the enrollments here, but at our campus, outside of the lineman program that we have there, I mean, we're essentially a 5-county area, maybe a little bit broader than that. So, Northern is maybe a good example of being able to attract out-of-state students into programs that really provide more than just, you can make an argument that college education at any level enhances a person's statistical average. In fact, I was just looking at that, and any kind of college will increase your potential earnings as one metric. But I think maybe really looking at what it is that we do as a two-year system, both organizationally and in terms of programs that would allow us to look out of state. With the demographics of, our 5-county area, the idea, we're going to have to get to that other 40% as the commissioner alluded to in order to have any chance of growth in our enrollment program, unless we're sort of looking for programs that will attract out-of-state students. I think the tuition structure needs to be looked at. We take a lot of pride in our tuition rates, but it also limits us. The commissioner also alluded to the fact about marketing kinds of funds, and those things limit us some. And I think the real big one, I think Brock really kind of hit it, is the scheduling. And the idea that our schedules are convenient for us as faculty as opposed to being more convenient for students. And that's, again, something that Clayton has been talking about for a while. And so I think if we really want a community college kind of mission, I think our schedule has to look different. Great Falls is a good example of where they're moving, evening weekends. Those are tough conversations. Those are faculty and staff kinds of discussions that you have to look at. But we don't look like a community college when we're between 9 and 3 in the afternoon, and the work schedules that those kinds of people need to be able to stay in the workforce and stay oftentimes supporting families in various ways. We're not conducive to that. So, I think those kinds of things from the Regents in terms of a perspective, I think will help us as we try to improve two-year education in the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Blackheader. I saw quite a few head nods over there from our colleagues on the campuses. President Karras, and then I'll come to you, David.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would just say, and maybe it's just a couple of things. First, engaging OPI in K-12 is great, but don't forget 3 community colleges have 7 locally elected trustees that oversee us, and there was a time when our trustees would meet with the Regents, and perhaps engaging them in a conversation again would be very beneficial. I also think, and maybe it's because I report to a community college board, and over the past 27 years, I've been involved in two-year education in the state of Montana in many different roles. But many of the issues you're discussing today are the same that we've been discussing for a number of years. And we've seen great improvement in many areas and a lot of changes. Sometimes things have circled back around and been discussed again, and we've looked at how to address them again. Our students are unique, as you've heard. Many of them are traditional age high school students. Many of them are older students with families who, if they can't come to school full-time, it definitely impacts their education and their ability to complete. And yes, changing schedules and looking at tuition all impact that, and those are things we've done and will continue to do. One of the things I would say as we look at all of those issues, and I appreciate Deputy Commissioner Tessman having us all get together in January to discuss these issues. Perhaps this conversation is a little premature until we all have a chance to sit down again and talk about what are the challenges we're facing today and what are some strategies that we have to address them. I appreciate all of the comments from the presidents and the regents, but you asked for this to be a conversation about two-year education, and the majority of the conversation has not been from any of the two-year leaders. So we all have a perspective, we all have data, and when we get to the March or May meeting, I would just ask that when the conversation happens, that it happens with the two-year leaders.
So noted. Thank you, President Karras. Chancellor Edelman.
Thank you, Regent Nystrom and Regents. We're very proud of our city college, and we want to make sure that there's pathways between the institution as well as access to the school district as well. We have to be a little bit more innovative. That means a bus path between the university campus and city college as well. But there's also other opportunities. Since the city college is more aligned with occupational needs, we have several programs where students don't finish. Now, why don't they finish? Because the employer, they're taking them out of the courses, offering them 6 figures in some cases to get a job, and that actually hurts our financial funding because now our completion rate's down. And I'm not trying to complain about that or anything else, but I think that's an example of, are we doing the right thing by educating and getting somebody in the workforce even though they don't have their associate's degree completed or anything? But I think we have a great opportunity to align more with the community, or with the school district, to do apprenticeships and do different kind of innovative programs. So I share what Chancellor said next to my partner next to me, is that we do need to recruit out-of-state students more. There's a big market out there, and we need to be competitive and perhaps look at our tuition pricing for that as well. Thank you.
Chancellor Weatherby.
Thank you. Just really quickly, I want to reinforce what Regent Tuss said, that we have an embedded two-year mission at the University of Montana Western, and it's a really meaningful degree. It's both an entryway to a possible 4-year education, but for us, we're really proud of the fact that we also ensure that if our students, for some reason, are not going to be able to continue on that 4-year or 6-year path, they have the opportunity to finish and succeed and complete something. And so some of our success in completion has been because we have an embedded 2-year mission. And those students are then steered carefully toward completing that solid 2-year degree.
Thank you, Chancellor Weatherby. Other questions or comments? Well, Regent Lozar.
Thank you, Chair Nystuen. So just kind of listening to the conversation, one of the things that, we've talked about OPI, but one of the things that I feel like I'm hearing is that we're getting more and more siloed into, this is a conversation at MUS, this is a conversation within 2 years and 4 years and whatnot. And I think as 2-year leadership is getting together and OCHI leadership is getting together, that we need to expand the voices at the table. I would underscore what the commissioner said in terms of, there's 44% of the population that we're not reaching. There's 150,000 of folks who have some education, but no degree, no credential, that we're not reaching. And I think that we've got to pretty significant marketing issue for the system. And there's tons of partners that are in our communities. There's the economic development organizations. There's the chambers that have a skin in the game on this conversation. There's Montana College Access Network, or one of our partners, Montana Higher Education Student Assistance Corporation, that is in fact working just on this exact conversation about career and educational pipelines. There's articulation agreements with our tribal colleges. What can tribal colleges do, and what can we do with them in partnership? I hope that this is not a conversation that we have in a vacuum. Of course, we need to have the conversation around at the table of campus leadership, but if we're going to come up with a plan and we're going to be expected to be the only ones with the voice that's pushing the plan, I think we're going to fail. And so I would say let's look at the private sector, see what partnerships we can have on, particularly on marketing the great opportunities that exist at all of our campuses, but certainly the great opportunities that exist for our citizens at the two-year campuses. So for what it's worth, I'd put maybe an asterisk in our notes that we ensure that we're going to be diligent about reaching out to folks beyond the system to help us in striving to get our 2 years to where we want them to be.
Thank you, Regent Lozar. As we draw a conclusion here to this has been a kind of a unique aspect of our meetings. So oftentimes our meetings are characterized by presentation from campuses, from OCHI, and community leaders and so forth, and seldom do we have a chance to actually have a roundtable discussion about these types of things here. And so I saw, Brock, you took a lot of notes over there. Hopefully that'll provide you some great insights as you gather the two-year leaders together in the next month and a half or so, to provide you some direction that you'd like to take that. So with that, Brock, Clay, any final comments? Okay. Well, thank you all for the conversation here. Again, our goal will be to continue to have this probably as an agenda item for upcoming meetings here and so forth. So onward and upward. So thank you. The other item that we have here today before the two-year and community college committee is a report on the Healthcare Montana grant report. And so with that, Deputy Commissioner Tessman, would you cue that up for us, please?
Chair Nystuen, members of the board, thank you. Many of you have heard about the Healthcare Montana grant project, which has recently wrapped up, almost a $15 million project. We see many lasting effects throughout the state from this project, and I think we'll continue to see new ideas and new partnerships emerge because of Healthcare Montana. We have Dr. Norris here, who's been the program director for Healthcare Montana for multiple years now, and I think you've seen her report before. She's here today to present the final report for the Healthcare Montana project, but certainly we'll hear more from this project in other ways in years to come. Dr. Norris, thank you for being here.
Madam Chair, Board of Regents, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you about the accomplishments of Healthcare Montana. As a reminder, the CARE in healthcare stands for Creating Access to Rural Education. It was a $15 million project with 18 consortium partners, 15 two-year and community colleges, and 4 of those were tribal. The Office of the Commissioner of Higher Education, the Montana Department of Labor and Industry, and the Area Health Education Centers all participated. And we had over 200 employer partners that participated in some aspect of the project. I've provided you with my email address and my phone number, and also a handout that is much more detailed than I have time to go into with my presentation today. The project was a 4-year project, started in October 1 of 2014 and officially ended on September 30th of 2018. In fact, I just turned in our final report to the Department of Labor, and so that was like a win-win there. So implementation actually ended in March. So the information that I'm providing you today is actually from that point in time when we had to stop moving forward. So Missoula College was the lead grantee on this project, but I've provided you here a list with the 15 two-year and community colleges that also participated. This is a map of, oh, you can't even, can you see this? Oh, good, okay. Oh, good, thank you. So this is a map that shows you where all of our healthcare partners, our employer partners, the facilities that they were located in across the state. And you can see that we have participation from all of our urban areas as well as our rural and many frontier communities. As you can see, we actually covered the entire state. It was a very fun and interesting experience to work with so many employers. We directly served approximately 3,600 students. We had over 5,000 students that were enrolled in the healthcare programs during the project. One of the main focuses of the project was to revise the nursing curriculum. And so we reduced each the practical nursing program, the Associate of Science nursing program, and the BSN completion program by 1 semester. Each one of those got reduced by a semester. The practical nursing program is now offered in 5 different colleges, but 3 of them actually offer it in via a hybrid distance delivery. We, at this point, have 17 graduates, and they have an 88% NCLEX pass rate. It was intentional to keep the enrollment small while the colleges figured out how to do a very rigorous nursing program in a distance format. So we will probably see those numbers increase over time. We created registered healthcare apprenticeship programs for the first time in Montana. With 51 facilities across the state, we have 21 registered apprenticeship occupations. That is actually more than anybody in the nation, and in fact, in healthcare. If you add up all the other states' healthcare programs, apprenticeship programs, we have more than all of them added together. So this was a huge major accomplishment in Montana. We have 204 apprenticeships in those facilities across the state. We now have 49 new or enhanced programs, including Career Essentials for Health Sciences. So we were able to be successful because with our curriculum revisions and with the apprenticeship program, because we really remained the entire time employer-driven. In fact, for the first time in Montana in healthcare, the employers actually sat on the curriculum revisions committees. In fact, 3 employers actually co-chaired subcommittees. So that was a very vital and important interaction that happened between the faculty and the employers across the state, so that the faculty could make changes that the employers in the field said they needed to have happen. In fact, we increased, one of the very interesting things about this project was that the nursing faculty realized that they did not have really a very focused part of their curriculum on rural nursing. And so since Montana is almost all rural, they realized, oh wow, this is something we really need to change. And that was because of the direct feedback that they got from the employers that were sitting on the curriculum committees. We also always maintained a rural focus, and we partnered with the licensing boards, the professional educations, the workforce development stakeholders, and we had excellent, just really excellent state-level leadership support from the governor's office to the commissioners and from legislators. So that was very beneficial and helpful to us. So because the registered apprenticeship program we created from scratch, we had to develop all of our materials ourselves. And these materials then we developed into a toolkit, which is now getting national recognition. When we worked with our employers, we realized that we needed to partner with the education providers, and we needed to provide them options. So there are a combination of our healthcare apprenticeship programs that are either college credit programs or continuing education. So I'm just going to spend a minute talking to you about the impact of the revised nursing curriculum. Because we reduced the practical nurse program and the Associate of Science nurse programs by 1 semester, we will have created a 20 to 25% reduction in time and up to approximately $8,300 in reduction in cost for the students to go through the PN and the ASN programs. They will now enter the workforce 4 to 6 months earlier, and this results in a potential increase of
of earnings, about $15,000 for the LPNs and about $22,000 for the RNs. The RNs can now complete the BSN in 8 semesters, which is the same as if they had started out at a 4-year university. However, because they already now are a licensed registered nurse, they can actually work while they complete the BSN program, which I forgot to mention in my other slide, is actually now all online. So it's 3 semesters online with a few credits that have to be done in the facility where the nurses are working. And this is great for adult learners because they can actually earn while they learn. Also, because of the reduction in the time to complete, we are increasing the number of Associate Science Registered Nurse graduates over time by about 20%. And we will see a significant increase in the number of LPNs who are now practicing as LPNs for longer than a year, which is what was happening before when they would then go immediately into the RN program, because that's how the nursing program was structured before. And we will see an increase of the BSNs in rural areas. So we created the Career Essentials for Health Sciences curriculum. And the purpose of the Career Essentials for Health Sciences is to help students prepare themselves to successfully work in healthcare facilities in whatever allied health occupation they are in. It is a 15-hour course, and it has 5 3-hour online self-paced modules. And it's offered for either 0 credit or 1 credit with additional homework, depending on the college and the program. The content areas of Career Essentials for Health Sciences are healthcare delivery systems, oral communication in healthcare, health worker behavior and attitudes, legal and ethical practices and responsibilities, and safe practices in healthcare. And as you can see, this content would apply to any healthcare occupation. So I've provided you here with a map of where the registered apprenticeship programs are located, so you can see they're all over the state. This also provides you a list with all the occupations, the 21 occupations that now are registered as healthcare apprenticeship programs in Montana, and then the numbers of apprentices that are in each one of those occupations. When we reached out to our employers originally, the rural employers, and asked them what some of their major needs were, they said they really struggle with the turnover with their entry-level positions. And so I have some quotes here. So anyway, so that's why we did this combination of continuing education and also college credit apprenticeships. I've provided you here with some quotes from employers who participated in the registered apprenticeship program, but I would just like to tell you that they have indicated to me that having these trainings in their facilities has actually changed the culture of their organizations. They have been able to upskill their current employees. They have created new occupations within their organizations. They now have nurse mentors who are working with the students that are the employers in the organization, and they are providing better patient care. An example of that is a CNA who trained as a restorative aide was working with a resident with her new skills who was wheelchair bound. And after she worked with him, he actually began walking with a walker. And he'd been wheelchair bound for years. So this improving patient care, improving the healthcare workforce so that we can improve patient care is really what this whole thing is about. So I'll talk to you just for a few minutes about sustainability. All of our curriculum that we developed, and I only went into a very minimal amount of what we developed. We developed a lot of continuing education, and a lot of the colleges got special funds to actually improve or develop new curriculum within their institutions, and I didn't have time to go into all of that for you. But anyway, all of that curriculum will continue long after Healthcare Montana is done. And the directors of nursing, as well as the Allied Health Council, continue to meet. Our healthcare apprenticeships will just continue to grow over time. And in fact, I know we're at much more than 204 at this point, but I don't have a direct line anymore, so I don't really know what the numbers are. Because the Montana Department of Labor and Industry, they have now designated a healthcare apprenticeship field coordinator, and they have cross-trained their other field coordinators so that they will also be able to help with the apprenticeship, healthcare apprenticeship process. Our academic, government agency, and industry relationships will continue after this grant funding is done because Commissioner Clay Christian and previous Deputy Commissioner John Seck had the foresight to realize that what we were doing with these relationships was something that was invaluable. And so they wanted the work of Healthcare Montana to continue on after the grant funding was over. So they created the Montana University System Healthcare Education and Workforce Coordinating Council. And Deputy Commissioner Tessman has a new name for it, or an acronym for it. What'd you tell me today? Oh, you forgot.
Yeah, it's beyond my scope of power to name. I just think we have to come up with some. So HUC2, I think.
QC2 is what he said. So anyway, so the Deputy Commissioner and I have been meeting to talk about how to keep this council moving forward now that Deputy Commissioner Zek is gone. But anyway, with this council, with members of this council, which represent education, government, and industry. In education, the OCHI Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner, Provost, Deans of Healthcare Programs, the two-year college representatives, the AHEC Director, Allied Health Council, Nursing Council, GME Council, and WWAMI all have representatives on this council. And that covers every healthcare program that is offered in Montana. So the opportunity for communication among two-year colleges, four-year colleges, all the various programs will be really phenomenal. The government representatives are the Montana DLI, OPI, and DPHS. And industry, we have members from the Critical Access Hospitals, from the Montana Hospital Association, the Medical Association, the Dental Association, and members at large. So their charge is to advise the decision makers in the state on what are the needs of the healthcare workforce in Montana, to identify priorities, to ensure the healthcare education programs are addressing workforce issues, to identify and recommend resources, and to report to the Commissioner of Higher Education as well as the Board of Regents annually on how are we doing with delivering good quality healthcare programs in Montana and what can we do to improve them. So I would like to end by just finally saying that this will keep Healthcare Montana's work going for a very long time, and this work would not have been able to be accomplished without the amazing teamwork of the dedicated staff and faculty and college leadership and the employers across the state who worked as a team tirelessly to bring about all these changes. So thank you, and if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Thank you, Dr. Norris. What a great report, and congratulations on these fabulous outcomes. And Mr. Commissioner, I applaud you and your team for the vision to keep this going. The good news is it didn't end with the culmination of the grant. It lives on, and our communities from where we all come from are going to clearly benefit into the long run. So questions for Dr. Norris?
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Norris.
Thank you for your support.
We have Siri.
I just have a quick comment. That's all right. I just wanted to sort of echo the praise of Regent Nissoon and say from the governor's perspective what a huge success this project was. Certainly, I think the two main aspects, the redesign of the curriculum and engaging employers to make it more efficient and effective, is huge, just because we know, particularly in healthcare, but in many industries, these workers are needed like yesterday. So any semester that we can shorten, both for the benefit of the student, employer, and employee and the employer, I think is great. And then I just would echo your comments about the apprenticeship piece. It really is getting national attention, and we get requests constantly for how did you do this? Can we recreate your model from states all around the country? And so it really is a national model and something that to be proud of. I certainly know that the governor is incredibly proud of it and talks about the Healthcare Montana grant everywhere we go. So thank you for your work on it and for the entire team. It was a huge, huge effort, and I think the sustainability of it speaks to how powerful the grant itself was.
Yes, I continue to get asked to do national webinars talking about the nursing revisions that we did, as well as the apprenticeship program. And there is a national site that the Department of Labor developed with funding that actually houses, that's their open education resource website, and it houses everything that the colleges created. And the apprenticeship program has its own special site on there that people can click into and get our materials. And we developed very lengthy and in-depth materials so that other people can do what we've done.
Thank you for your great comments, Siri. We appreciate it. Dr. Norris, anyone else? If not, Chair Albrecht, we hand the meeting back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Regent Nicetoon. If it is acceptable to all, I would like to just take a quick 5-minute break, and then we will return and finish up with our committee reports and action and 2 student appeals and public comment. If we could just make this quick and return by 5 minutes to 10, that'd be great. your seats, and we will continue with this morning's meeting in approximately 1 minute. Thank you. Okay. Again, good morning. I am grateful for those of you who have joined us this morning. And at this moment, I would like to move into our next point on the agenda, which is our committee reports and action. So let's begin with the action items for the Academic Research and Student Affairs Committee. I would begin with action item A, which is an honorary doctorate from the Montana State University for Dr. Lynette Chandler posthumously. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Lozar. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses? Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Congratulations, and we look forward to honoring Dr. Chandler in December.
Thank you so much.
President Cruzado.
Thank you so much to the Regents. As you know, Lynette's family has a long tradition and affiliation with not only with Montana, but with the Montana University system. Her father, Weinstein, has been a faculty member at Native American Studies at Montana State University. Her mother, her mother-in-law, Carol Chandler, is the president of the Aninakota College for 17 years. And in addition to that, Sean Chandler, her husband, has been a faculty member in Aninakota College. Sean and Lynette have 2 daughters, and in honoring Lynette, we're also celebrating and honoring her entire family, and particularly her 2 daughters. Thank you to the Regents.
Thank you. Action item B, Level 2 Executive Summary. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Regent Rogers. Any discussion from members of the board? Regent Sheehy.
I'd like to once again thank the Doig family for their contributions. And I'm very excited about the renaming that's included in this item. Thank you, President Cruzado, for pursuing that.
Thank you. Any further discussion from members of the board? Campuses. Any public comment on this item? Seeing no further comment, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Congratulations. Items C and D were approved yesterday, so that will conclude our action items for the Academic Research and Student Affairs Committee. Moving on to action items for Budget Administration and Finance. I have under consent staff items A through C, with item D pulled for action, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve consent items A through C?
I think there's
Madam
also.
Chair- Madam Chair, there's also E, F, G, and H as a part of the consent agenda.
There is that part of the alphabet. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve items A, B, C, pulling D, E, F, G, and H?
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Tuss. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses. Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. I will begin the action items below, beginning with item D, labor agreements. I would entertain a motion to approve the labor agreements, item D.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Sheehy. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses. Any public comment?
Hi, my name is Taylor Blossom. I'm the student body president at MSU. I'm just up here as student body president of MSU, not as a MAS representative. Potential tuition increases are always hard for students, but I never think we should be avoiding those at the expense of supporting our faculty and administrators who do so much for this system. And so I'd just like to speak in support of this and the next item that's coming up for the pay increases, because I want to make sure we're valuing those people and attracting and keeping the most talented people we can for those positions. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Any further public comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Action item A, fiscal year 19 pay plan implementation. I would entertain a motion to approve. So moved. Motion made by Regent Nicetune. Any further discussion from members of the board? Campuses. Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Opposed by Regent Sheehy. 6-1, motion passes.
Madam Chair, if I could break protocol for a second and just make a public comment on the labor agreements D and A. I just wanted to give some kudos to Deputy Commissioner McCray for all the work he's been doing with negotiating the labor agreements and looking at regional comps and ensuring that we're able to retain and attract the top level officials that we need to move our university forward. And I agree with Taylor from MSU. I think our growth can't come at the expense of high-level, high-performing officials. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Regent Regent Lozar. Moving on to Action item B, MUS internal audit policy. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Tuss. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses? Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Action item C, authorization to sell the Mineral Research Center at Montana Tech. Entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Lozar. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses? Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Action item D, authorization to remodel the Natural Resource Research Center at Montana Tech. I would entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Motion made by Regent Rogers. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses? Any public comment on this item? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item E, authorization to purchase real property at Montana Tech. I'd entertain a motion to approve this item. Motion made by Regent Nicetoon. Any discussion from members of the board? Campuses? Any public comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The remaining items are information items and do not call for action. There are no action items in the two-year and community college committee. At this moment, I would move to the next item on the agenda, which are the two student appeals, and I will present these separately. The first student appeal, you have all received the commissioner's decision and the written appeal with supporting documents submitted by the student. The issue before the board in each of these is solely to determine whether to hear the appeal at a later meeting. Board of Regents policy does not require the board to entertain these appeals if we are satisfied with the commissioner's review and decision. The appeal is confidential, and we will not be addressing the student by name or even identifying the campus involved, nor will we address the facts or the specific issues today. The sole issue today is whether any regent believes the issues addressed in the commissioner's decision needs further review at the board level. If you do not wish to hear the appeal at the Board of Regents level, it is not necessary to make a motion. A lack of action on our part will signify our decision not to hear the case. Are there any general questions regarding this procedure before we go to the appeal? Student appeal number 1, I will entertain a motion to hear this appeal. There being no motion to hear this appeal, the request that we entertain this appeal is denied, and the commissioner's decision is upheld. Moving on to student appeal number 2. I will entertain a motion to hear this appeal. There being no motion to hear this appeal, the request that we entertain this appeal is denied. The commissioner's decision is upheld. At this point in the meeting, I would invite anyone to come forward for this portion of the meeting for public comment. Please come forward and state your name.
Good morning. My name is Candy Lubansky, and I am the chairperson of the Bitterroot College Advisory Council. And I really appreciate your conversation about two-year programs. When I was in Gallatin County, I had the privilege to be on the Gallatin Advisory Council, and it's important work. There are 10 separate campuses in our state, as you know, and that means in addition to the embedded programs, there is one campus for every 67,000 people in our state, and we're a big state. It's an important system. Bitterroot College has been in place for 10 years. President Bodner just visited us a couple weeks ago, which we really appreciate. The Bitterroot College is not a subsidiary of the Missoula College, and it shouldn't be, because community needs are very different across our state. And as such, we would really appreciate the work you're pursuing with regard to, I love the phrase, one door should open all doors. And the two-year system is fundamental in that process. So you were talking about the barriers. And there are 3 that we see as an effort. Number 1 is our academic authority. If we don't have academic authority as a two-year program, we cannot be responsive to our local community needs in a timely fashion. So that authority needs to be timely, expedited, and in response to our specific community needs. Secondly, you were talking about tone at the top. So your tone that you're presenting today is fundamental to all of our success. And that would be our second barrier, is that recognition of importance. The third one, of course, is resources and getting the resources we need to be responsive at the community level. I would say that Deputy Commissioner Tessman's comments about K-12 as a retired superintendent, K-12 superintendent in Montana, I can tell you that the Montana University system is not understood by families. We have 10 campuses that are two-year programs. We have community colleges. We have embedded programs. And that K-12 door is fundamental. So I encourage you to not spend a lot of time admiring the problem and do the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Candy.
Good morning, Commissioners and member of the board. My name is Hannah Johnson, and I am the president of the Associated Students of Helena College. We're gonna raise this up a little bit. I'm the president of the Associated Students of Helena College, as well as the vice president of internal affairs for MUS. Commissioner Christian, I would just like to speak that I fully support your decision to reevaluate the K-12 direction within the two-year campus system. For example, when I was a senior in high school just 2 years ago, one of my teachers said to me, "Why are you going to a two-year campus? You have so much more potential than that." And honestly, for me, that really did strick me hard. If it wasn't for Regent Dalton Johnson, I would have overlooked Helena College as a potential college altogether. So thank you, Dalton. And as for that, I'm his sister, so.
I was going to acknowledge that if you didn't, so thank you.
And as that goes, I feel as if I am receiving a better education at a two-year school, and I am succeeding better that way. I would also like to speak to Deputy Commissioner Tessman, wherever he may be. Okay, thank you. And as for this, I would like to also invite up a student representative from Great Falls College. I'll just kick it off while she's coming up. Deputy Commissioner Tessman, Dalton Johnson had kind of challenged you to reach out to MAS to include more two-year members. I strongly encourage you to do this. Since I am the Vice President of Internal Affairs, I would love to be present in this conversation and help you achieve this. Tiffany and I are currently the only two-year school voting members of MAS, and it is very challenging to represent all two-year students when two-year students aren't present at board meetings, aren't on the calls, or anything like this. I know each student government does have its own representation system with their city colleges or Gallatin or Missoula College, so that might be a challenge. However, it is very important that their voices are heard. Tiffany?
I'm Tiffany from Great Falls College, MSU. I fully agree with that. On our MAS calls, we are the only two voting members, and I believe if we could get all of our two-year colleges together, we would have a better understanding, more communication, and a better way to figure out all of our solutions. It is really hard to represent just the two colleges, and we're pretty much on the same page. So I think as the other ones, they would have better insight as well if they participate a little bit more in MAS and Board of Regents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah and Tiffany, and thank you for your commitment and your advocacy. We appreciate your time and your investment. Any further public comment? Oh, please come forward. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Regents, thank you so much for allowing me to have just a couple minutes here at the end of this packed 2 days. Dr. Sandra Boham, President of Salish Kootenai College. And I have a couple things I want to say. One is thank you so much for giving the tribal colleges a seat at the meetings where we do rotate depending on whose area we're in. But it has been a very beneficial piece for us because we get to hear what's going on with all of you, and sometimes you get to hear what's going on from us. Salish Kootenai College has been probably Dr. Cruzado and President Bodnar are tired of hearing from us because we've been kind of in their ear for the last couple of months about increasing our partnership levels. And we straddle the 2-year and the 4-year programs because I don't know how many of you know that we have 16 baccalaureate degrees at SKC, 23 degree programs in total and 6 certificate programs. So we're kind of across the board, and so we navigate and work with virtually every school of higher ed in the state that we can get into, except for our closest neighbor, Flathead Valley, who, by the way, was our parent college 40 years ago. Wow. And so, you know, we were just talking, and it's time for us to reconnect and talk about how we're gonna work together in the future. Salish Kootenai College has been, okay, no other tribal colleges are here, so I can say it. We're the flagship tribal college. You know, there isn't anybody better. And that's because of we've had a really good founder, and we all know what the mission is. We all are passionate with what we're doing because we are actually an activist institution. We exist to meet the needs of people in our community, to fill the needs that we have within our tribal communities that we never had. So 40 years ago, in 1977, I was a struggling high school senior who had decided I really didn't think I needed to struggle. Okay, so I wasn't gonna go. I was seriously contemplating not being in high school. My parents, who never went to high school, my mother went to the boarding school at the Ursuline Academy in St. Ignatius, said, no, you have to go to college. My dad, who is from southeastern coal mine, Kentucky, said, no, you have to go to college. My response was, neither one of you did.
So why would I go pay somebody to torture me when I'm here in my regular school? And mind you, I had the teachers my mother had in high school, so I said, no, I'm not going to go. Well, this little baby college had started, which was Salish Kootenai College under Flathead Valley. And she said, take some classes as a high school student, and maybe you'll change your mind. And I did, and it did, and now I'm standing here today as the president of Salish Kootenai College. So those 2-year, 4-year graduate programs are incredibly important. And at that time, we had nobody in our tribal organization who had the background and ability to manage our resources or any of those things. We brought people from Boston and wherever. Now, because of Salish Kootenai College and the relationships we have with the other institutions, that is not the case. And most of our natural resources and department heads and decision makers are our tribal people. And that's important. So you all do good work. And sometimes it's easy to forget the good work you do, which is your students. But we appreciate it, we see it, and we are very grateful that you have given us the opportunity to be able to interchange and talk about plans and programs and mentorship, because I will tell you I have learned from many people in this room, because we don't need to recreate the problems. If somebody else has already tried it, they can help us not fall down the hole. So I appreciate all of you, and I just wanted to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Boehm. And congratulations on all that you've done. Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing no further public comment, I would like to finish today's meeting with a couple of remarks, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, President Bodner, and then we will adjourn. I would just like to first say that again, express my gratitude to you, President Bodner, and to your team for the fantastic hospitality over the last couple days. It has been remarkable, and again, there is such an energy here, and I commend you for your leadership. I would also encourage you all to take a look, if you have not, that yesterday was a very big day when you take a look at what the governor chose to include in his budget. As we look across the nation, we are seeing declines in the support of higher education. And the unfortunate part of that is the unintended consequences when you do not have the kind of support that you need for public higher education and what that does for your state. And Siri, I would just ask you to extend my gratitude, and if I may say on behalf of the board, thank you to Governor Bullock for his continued support of higher education, the importance of public education, and the importance of endorsing that through his budget. I think, again, it deserves a significant acknowledgement from all of us, and it requires all of us, and I would challenge all of you in here today in the room to remember that we must all be ambassadors and advocates for higher education. It's not just us sitting at the table, it's all of us together. How deeply do we believe in this state of Montana, the vitality and the opportunities for our students moving forward? That is the opportunity we have ahead of us, but we all need to be educated advocates and ambassadors for higher education and for our students. So please, again, extend our thanks to Governor Bullock. And again, I'd like to turn it over, and I know that there is a game, and I will acknowledge that there is a game right around the corner. And I want to commend our campuses across the state for the incredible camaraderie, collaboration that, again, benefits our students, which is most critical. And the competitive spirit can carry on the football field tomorrow. President Bodner, please go ahead and make some comments.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Commissioner, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for a wonderful 2 days. We've been honored to host you here on this campus. Hopefully, over the course of the meeting and on the tours, the receptions, I think you've seen examples of the exciting things happening here at the University of Montana. We've heard in the meeting wonderful things happening across the system. I think we've seen the vibrant, the energetic, the passionate students that are at the heart of what we do. And I think most importantly, we've seen, to your point, the incredible impact of the Montana University system in our meetings with community leaders here and the presentations. And it's been, these meetings are inspiring in that sense. And I want to thank you and thank everyone for participating in that. I want to be clear, these meetings don't happen without a great deal of effort. And I want to, once again, we started with a thank you, but also reiterate that thanks to the entire team here at the university that made that possible, our team in the University Center, Dining, that has worked just overtime to provide us with delicious, sustainable, creative meals over the course of this week. Our student groups, ASUM, our Native American Student Advisory Council, KIO, our Pacific Islanders group, and the students who displayed their art here for us during the conference, as well as our faculty and staff who showcased activities in the Innovation Factory and elsewhere. Just a hats off to everyone who did that, and a special thanks to the crew that was at the core of this work. Kelly Webster, whose energy and passion are boundless and amaze me every day. I want to thank Kelly, as well as Maggie Angle and Alex Walker, Ryan Martin, and Rebecca Power and Penny Newbold, who also stepped up. And I think it's also important to note, we campuses do this once every other year. The OCHI team does it every few months. And so Amy Unsworth, to you and the entire team, Amy does a ton of work behind the scenes every few months for these. And thank you to the OCHI crew as well. Fran mentioned it, we have an exciting game tomorrow, and it will be an exciting game. It's a fun rivalry. I got to be honest, I have a team that I want to win, and I have I have a fight song that I want to hear more often than the other one. But what's interesting though, and it strikes me because and everybody will know the first words of that fight song, which are "Up with Montana." It's not "Up with Missoula" or "Up with Bozeman" or "Up with Havre" or "Up with Great Falls" or Dillon. It's "Up with Montana." And I would just close our meeting, where you did, by thanking this entire group, because we can joke about fun rivalries on the field, and that is fun. But the work that happens here at this university and across this state and is highlighted in these meetings, and the work that everyone in this room dedicates their time, their talents, their passion to, the work of truly helping all of Montanans rise through higher education. It can't be overstated, the importance of the work that happens here. So I want to close just by thanking everybody in this room for the important work that that you all do every day. So thank you for your time, thank you for your partnership, and have a good rest of the afternoon and a safe trip home. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, President Bodner. Well said. And on that note, I thank you all for coming, and we are adjourned.